Did you know sharks can turn their stomachs inside out and
Ew.
past its teeth to vomit up their latest meal?
I didn't know that, but that's very similar to what frogs can do, right? They
Can they
eat
do
like
that?
a bad meal and they're like, ooh, I need to vomit. But they can't vomit, so they just turn their stomach inside out.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
That's what the shark has done to expel this arm.
Yeah, exactly. And they do this for a variety of reasons because, yeah, something doesn't sit right with them, or they do it when they feel stressed. Apparently, if they want to eat more, it's a slight case of bulimia. I don't know.
The original Romans, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let's have like a feast. And then you've got the vomitorium on the side. And, oh, you've eaten everything that you can. Oh, just go to the vomitorium.
Yeah.
Stick your fingers down your throat. If you need a hand, we've got Steve here. He's my handmaiden. He'll help you.
Yeah, he's got really long fingers.
Yeah,
Gets
yeah.
right to the back.
And off you go to eat some more.
Welcome to the Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things. We're a weekly variety podcast that gives you just enough information to stand your ground at any social gathering. We explore stories from the darker corners of true crime, the annals of your old unread history books, and the who's who of extraordinary people. I am your ringmaster for this episode, Adam Cox.
And I'm your Sharon from finance this week. Because every circus needs
A finance department.
finance department, yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to be spending like off the rails. You got to keep within budget, right?
Yeah, like who ordered this giant cage and elephant this week? It's out of budget.
Yeah. Who ordered these human parts for the tigers? We don't have budget for this.
Yeah, as weird how most of our roles now are nothing to do with the circus.
I think we literally ran out of circus things.
So in today's episode of the Compendium, we will step back in time to Sydney, Australia in 1935, a city buzzing with energy where the harbour sparkles under the sun and trams rattle through the bustling streets. It's a place where the beaches are alive with swimmers braving the surf, and the line between high society and the gritty underworld is thinner than you'd expect.
Oh, okay. So we're in Sydney, basically.
Yeah,
And it's gritty.
and it's gritty.
Yeah. That's all I've got for that clue. No idea what we're talking about.
Okay, so I will reveal a little bit more. It's a sunny public holiday. Thousands are flocking to the Coogee Aquarium baths.
Oh, we've been there.
We've been to Coogee. These baths don't actually exist anymore, but we have been to Coogee.
Oh, they've been shut down.
Been shut down. And these people that are spending their public holiday, they are eager to enjoy the sunshine and everything else and get a glimpse of the newest marvel, a massive 4.5-meter tiger shark recently captured off the coast.
Okay.
Families are laughing, children are staring in awe.
What, at the poor tiger shark?
Yeah.
Okay. Look how stupid he looks.
You got caught. And this giant creature glides effortlessly through a saltwater pool that's a far cry from today's modern aquariums. So it's not really that nice, actually. It's just a giant pool.
Oh, poor shark.
But then something extraordinary happens. The shark becomes agitated, drawing the crowd's attention as it thrashes in the water. Then in a moment that leaves everyone speechless, it reveals a hidden secret from the depths, a discovery that propels Sydney into one of its most baffling mysteries. The shark vomits up
Ew.
a human arm.
Whose arm is it?
Well, yeah, you could assume that this shark has perhaps eaten a human, which,
Sounds bloody plausible.
yeah. But the thing is, what's attached to this human arm is a piece of rope, as if the arm was tied up.
Oh, is this a gangster story? Like, oh, someone's chucked him overboard and attached a big rope to the arm.
That's the thing, like, what's been going on here? Because is it just like sharks got hungry and eaten a human? Or has someone been fed to the sharks? So today we're going to meet a small-time crook with a knack for vanishing acts, a man dabbling in forgery whose luck might be running out, and a respectable businessman who might be hiding more than he seems.
Ooh.
As rumours swirl and the media frenzy builds, the city's police grapples with a mystery that they couldn't have predicted. Has there been a tragic accident or something more sinister at play?
I'm so living for this. What's happened? It's got to be gangs, right? It's got to be gangsters.
Gangsters, yeah. Actually, before I get on to the main story, did you know that sharks, if they didn't have fins, they wouldn't be able to swim the right way up? They would just like roll over in the water. and they wouldn't be able to swim in a straight line.
Really? Is that what you learned from this podcast during your research? Why? What does that mean?
I had no idea that's one of the reasons. That's what some of the fins are for. Otherwise, they would just roll around.
Oh, fins.
Yeah.
Sorry, for a second I was like, they're gills. I was conflating gills with fins. Oh, interesting. Okay. I guess that kind of helps them keep them buoyant or like the right way up. Right?
Yeah. I just thought it was really, I don't know, never knew about that.
So if I chopped off your arms and your legs, just chucked you in a swimming pool, I doubt you would be able to stay the right way up.
That's true. I probably would float to the bottom. Yeah.
You're like, oh no.
Yeah, okay. Don't think of it like that. So our mystery is all about what happened to that human. But before you get concerned about whether you would lose your arm to a shark, you are more likely to get struck by lightning, fatally fall down the stairs, drown in a bathtub, or die from a bee sting than you are being killed by a shark.
Okay. We were recently in Coogee.
Yeah.
We were walking along the promenade and across all those little beaches on the way to, where was it? Bondi Beach. Mm-hmm. And every other beach that we came to, there was a bunch of decaying flowers to commemorate someone who'd been eaten by a fucking shark. There wasn't always a shark attack. I think some drowned and stuff like that. Because a shark was involved.
I think now there isn't actually too many sharks. It's quite safe to swim at Bondi Beach.
Yeah, but that was a lot of flowers across a bunch of beaches. Do you know what? I'm going to be like, yeah, the odds are pretty high.
Now it's a lot safer, but back in 1935, it was pretty renowned for sharks. So at the time, they were seen as public enemy number one. Mm-hmm. And that was because there was a load of shark attacks in Sydney, which were becoming a regular occurrence, partly because the city's slaughterhouses and sewage were dumping straight into the ocean.
Ew.
And so it was thick with this refuse, and it was attracting a lot of sharks around the area, bull sharks, tiger sharks, great whites. And so if you were going to go for a swim back then, yeah, you probably wouldn't make it out alive.
Gross. Actually, did we not hear, like, very recently, it was in the news, where all these, like, big black blobs showing up on Sydney beaches?
Yeah, that's right.
And when they investigated what the black blobs were, they found that it was human poo, but also there was a ton of cocaine in it. So Australians are really coked up.
Yeah.
It's Sydney, so it's a financial area, district of the country.
Yeah, big city, got to make it through Monday to Friday.
And that's the thing, though, like when you go out on a bender and you've been drinking a shit ton and the next morning you have that poo, it's black. It's like, it's tar.
Ew.
Yeah, these people are going out on these benders across Sydney, taking a load of coke, shitting their guts out the next day, and then causing all the beaches to be shut down. Come on, Australians.
For several days, wasn't it? But I think there was a leakage from the sewage, wasn't it? And that's why it wound up on the beach.
I mean, yeah, that's the reason why. They're not shitting on the beach, Adam. That's not what I'm saying. Sorry, Australians. Adam's gone for the attack again. I'm not saying Australians are shitting on the beach. I'm saying, obviously, that there's been a leakage in the sewerage plant.
Just making it clear. After I pissed off some Australians before.
But do you know what? I bet if they had tested the Thames water, yes, there'd be loads of coke in there as well, but there would also be antidepressants.
Yeah,
and it's good to know that the Australians are happy, man.
That's true.
They've got the sun, they've got the sand, they've got the lifestyle, they've got the men, they've got the women, they've got the sharks. What's there to be unhappy about?
Yeah.
You live on fucking Coogee Bay. But anyway.
Let's crack on. So earlier that year in 1935, there had been several men that had been attacked by sharks and along the New South Wales beaches. And there were bounty hunters had been hired to help clear the waters, essentially. They really wanted to get rid of these sharks.
There'll be like someone going, oh, there's a bounty for a bunch of sharks. I know what we'll do. We'll set up a shark breeding plant.
Then release them.
And then release them and then shoot them and then get some money. Because that's what they did in India when they had like a major cobra issue.
Oh, really?
So the government was like, yeah, we've got too many cobras in India. We'll give you a bounty. We'll give you like $2 for every cobra that you bring to the government. So these people just started creating these cobra breeding centers in their houses and then killing the cobras and taking them to the government and going, money, please. And then the government like, wow, this is not good. And they put an end to it. So then what all these breeding places did, they then just released all the cobras out into the wild. And then they had like
even more
3 times the amount of cobras. So this is what's happening here.
Well, that hasn't been reported on.
How do you breed a shark?
A shark tank.
That's a big operation you've got going on there.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's April the 17th, 1935. And a few weeks after the most recent attack, a fisherman hooks a giant tiger shark off Coogee Beach. So this shark was 4.5 meters long And the fisherman was pretty lucky to catch it, not just because it was so big, but thankfully it was unconscious when it was found. Essentially what had happened, they had laid these traps, and overnight a relatively small shark had come along, got caught on a hook, and then the tiger shark had spotted this other little shark that got caught, came along, ate it, and then was like, oh, it gets caught itself by all the thrashing about.
Yeah.
And then it tries to like free itself, but then becomes so knackered that it can't get free.
It passes out.
It passes out. And so the next morning, the fisherman's like, oh, we've got a tiger shark. Oh, great. And then takes it back to shore.
And that's what then becomes this trophy for this aquarium.
Yeah, essentially that. He takes it back to the Coogee Aquarium baths because he thinks it would be a good idea to put it on display as a tourist attraction for the up-and-coming Anzac Day, which is a national day of remembrance.
So basically, this tiger shark has eaten another smaller shark and the human.
Yeah, we don't know that yet.
Okay.
We don't know what's happened. The shark was held in the aquariums for about a week, and it wasn't a modern aquarium with big glass walls and anything like that. It was just a swimming pool.
Oh, there's a pond. There's a shark in it.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
It has a shallow end and a deep end. It wasn't anything special.
It's literally a pool.
Yeah. And it was actually used by the public to actually swim in. But in the colder months, between April and October, it's too chilly. So they would bring in like wild animals to showcase.
Oh, that's cool. Like we saw a couple of those, I think, on Bondi Beach when you're standing on top of that little mount. You look down and there's like right on the ocean. There's like a little pool and people are like doing laps at 4:00 in the morning. Come on, Australians. Jesus, get some sleep. And then people are like swimming in the early hours of the morning.
Yeah. And so on Anzac Day, which was April the 25th, thousands of people had the day off and they decided to spend their afternoon at the Coogee Aquarium to go see this new shark. And it's been drummed up as like this big man-eating monster that people wanted to go see. I guess it wasn't really that often that you'd perhaps see a shark anyway back then, so it was quite a big spectacle.
Yeah, I guess so.
Plus, I think it was also the biggest ever shark that was ever displayed there, so it was quite a big thing that day. So late afternoon, the crowd had thinned a little bit, and there's only about a dozen people that remained around the pool. And the shark is looking a little slow, doesn't look that well, and then out of nowhere, the shark starts thrashing around and darts around the pool, bumping into walls and then churning up water, and splashes onlookers who are just like, well, what the hell's going on? And then it swims down to the shallow end and it goes still. And then the people crowd round. And then all of a sudden, a light brown, sludgy muck spread through the water.
Ew.
And the smell was instantly gross. And one by one, the shark's undigested meals floated to the surface. Half a rat, chunks of fish.
Half a rat?
Half a rat.
What's a rat doing in the middle of the ocean?
Who knows, yeah? Chunks of fish, feathers, so it was eating a bird. And then the grand finale, an adult human arm.
Wow.
And what was also really strange was the fact that this arm had a rope tied around its wrist. And first people's reaction was like, oh, could someone have fallen in? Had there been a terrible accident? But that rope would suggest whoever's arm that was probably tied up. And the arm was believed to belong to an adult man. And naturally, the police were called and they take a look at the arm and they're like, yep, that's a human arm, all right. So they questioned the Coogee Aquarium's owners, who were two brothers. And they're known to be like these hustlers who do anything to boost ticket sales.
Oh, a bit dodgy characters.
Yeah.
Do we know them? Because we have a friend who lives in Coogee Bay. Maybe were they like notorious, like business dealers of the time?
I don't know.
Fast Nick. Yeah.
As far as I've known, they're just these hustlers, so I don't know if they're that big a deal. But they did used to set their own traps in the ocean to capture wild animals for display.
You're saying like that as if that's like a bit of a clue.
They're obviously trying to drum up business.
They're looking for a shark.
Yeah.
Because the summer months are over. It's getting cold out there in Coogee Bay. And they're like, do you know what? Let's put a shark in this swimming pool.
Why not? So the police asked the brothers if there was any chance someone could have fed the arm to the shark while she'd been in the pool.
Yeah, because I just have a stack of arms.
Yeah. The brothers insisted that it had been pretty impossible for anyone to have done that without them, noticing.
Oh, my arm's gone. When did that happen? Yes, Steve, you've not had your arm for like 9 days.
Yeah, I don't know where
Really?
I left it. So the police accept that, okay, fine. If no one had fed the shark the arm whilst it was in the aquarium or this pool, then how did it happen?
Yeah, that's a conundrum.
Yeah, it must have got it from the wild, right? It's been in this pool for a week.
No one's fed the arm to it while it was in the aquarium.
Yeah.
Some tragic happening has happened out there in the ocean.
Yeah, and then it sat in the stomach for about a week, and then it's regurgitated it.
Because it's probably rotting.
The thing is, the arm was in very good condition.
Oh.
Its fingerprints were still intact, so it hadn't broken down from any of the stomach acid or anything like that. And so the idea was that smaller shark had perhaps eaten the arm, and then the tiger shark had then eaten the smaller shark. And so the tiger shark was breaking down the smaller shark in its body. And then as that was decomposing, the arm was left. And then it got to the arm in its stomach and then was like, oh, this doesn't taste good. And then vomited it out.
That makes 100% perfect sense.
That's what they think.
That's a good explanation for like why it hasn't decomposed.
That's what people believe at this point in time. Although, side note, did you know sharks can turn their stomachs inside out and past its teeth to vomit up their latest meal?
I didn't know that, but that's very similar to what frogs can do, right? They eat like a bad meal and they're like, ooh, I need to vomit. But they can't vomit, so they just turn their stomach inside out and they just empty out their contents. Yeah. It's like when you like have all that lilt in your pocket. And you're like, oh, crap, I've got all the crap in my pocket. You turn your pocket inside out. Women won't know this because, of course, famously, people don't make pockets in women's clothing. And then they just empty out their pocket. And then, like, you dust it off, and then you put your pocket back in.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Yeah.
But I was watching these videos, and you actually do see the stomach from these sharks, and it just pops out, almost like it's like blowing a balloon or something.
That's rank.
Yeah, and then all like, this other crap comes out of it.
That's what the shark has done to expel this arm.
Yeah, exactly. And they do this for a variety of reasons, because, something doesn't sit right with them, or they do it when they feel stressed. Apparently, if they want to eat more, slight case of bulimia. I don't know.
The original Romans, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let's have a feast, a big feast. And then you've got the vomitorium on the side. And like, oh, you've eaten everything that you can. Oh, just go to the vomitorium. Yeah. Stick your fingers down your throat. If you need a hand, we've got Steve here. He's my handmaiden. He'll help you.
Yeah, he's got really long fingers.
Yeah,
Gets right to the bag.
And off you go to eat some more. Yeah, exactly. Wow.
Right. But the wildest reason I read was that sometimes, and I couldn't fact check this.
Okay.
So I've only found this on one
Don't
source.
pretend we fact check.
Sometimes we do. But sometimes when they throw up, they do that when they think they're about to be eaten or attacked. And so they throw up as a bit of like a shiny ball, look over here, and then whoever's attacking it will then go eat its vomit.
Oh, that's so smart.
And it would like...
oh, hang on. You just vomit? Are you going to eat that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you I'll have it. Gross. Keep coming with all these different similarities, but like lizards do that.
Do they?
Yeah, so if a lizard is under attack, it will sever its own tail and then it will just run off and then hoping that you just eat the tail because the tail will just grow back.
Yeah, I guess it's all similar, like reptiles, sharks, amphibians. I don't know.
Man, the animal world is just amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the story. So one theory about how the shark came to possess the arm was that it could have been a recent shark attack. That was pretty common in the 1930s. So what they needed to do was try and find out who did this arm belong to. It was scooped out, taken to the police station for preservation, and they examined the arm. And what they found was that there was this distinctive tattoo where two men with boxing gloves were facing off. So it's pretty unique.
I was going to ask if it had any tattoos. I imagine it being like 1950 tattoos that Amy Winehouse has got. And they like pin up girls and stuff. And then you've got like this little boxer.
Yeah, like that. But it's the 1930s, so it wouldn't have been a 1950 tattoo.
Well, okay. Same thing.
But yeah, so the story hit the front pages and newspapers included the description of this tattoo. And the next day, a man...
Do you have a husband who's missing an arm? If he hasn't noticed and you have, then maybe it's his. This is what we think it looks like.
Gerard, where's your arm? I can't find it. That's odd. So the next day, a man comes forward after seeing the newspaper article, and he says, I'm pretty sure that's my brother John's arm, and his brother is called Jimmy Smith. Mm-hmm. They showed him the photo of the arm and the tattoo because in the paper it was just a description, and he recognizes it straight away, and he's like, yeah, that's my brother's arm. Where the hell is the rest of him?
Yeah.
The police began some forensic testing, and they verify Edward's claims that this was his brother's arm because they looked at his fingerprints, and Jimmy Smith was already known to the authorities.
Oh, so he's a bad guy.
Yeah, he was a bankrupt builder. And
okay. Because that famously makes you a bad guy.
Yeah, and he's a bit of a small-time criminal. He's also a boxer, hence the tattoo. But yeah, he's a small-time criminal with a record of minor convictions, and he had essentially, I guess, gradually got his way into the underworld with various different crimes. And he was involved in illegal gambling that was rife throughout Sydney at the time. And over the years, he'd been involved in drug smuggling, insurance fraud, all sorts of scams. So the police are aware of Jimmy and what he's been up to. Sure enough, they agree, yeah, it's a match. So they call his wife and being like, are you missing a husband? And she's like, yeah, he hasn't been home for 3 weeks.
If she hasn't gone to the authorities already, then that might be quite normal.
Exactly that, because she had told the police that he'd gone on a fishing trip to Cronulla with his buddy, a guy called Patrick Brady, otherwise known as Paddy. And he was meant to be gone for just a week, but instead he hadn't returned for 3 weeks. And he would disappear at times throughout the year because he was a criminal. And she's not going to alert the police that my husband's missing because he's a criminal.
Sure. And that's the lesson that people need to learn. When your husband says you are going on a fishing trip, they very rarely are going fishing. This guy here, obviously, life of crime, going off doing dodgy dealings. What about that other guy who was like, oh yeah, I'm going on a fishing trip? Wife follows him, having a 10-man orgy in a hotel room every 3 months.
Yeah,
with other men.
It's either those two things. No men actually fishers. They just are committing crimes or having gay orgies.
Actually, our best friend, Nick, is a huge fisher. And he goes away on these little fishing trips. I bet you he's doing both. Life of crime and having a 10-man gay orgy while his wife stays at home.
Has to be 10.
It's always 10. It's either a 10-some or 11-some.
The whole football team.
I think you can't have an orgy unless there's 11 people because it's fun to say. Oh, yeah. Oh, what'd you get up to on the weekend? I had an 11-some.
Someone could mistake that for 11sies.
11sies? Same thing.
Yeah, biscuits and chocolate.
Yeah. And then we had a massive 11-man orgy.
Yeah, there we go. So at this point, it's pretty clear to Jimmy's wife and everyone else that not only is Jimmy missing, but wherever he was missing an arm and could well be dead, essentially.
I think it's safe to say he's dead.
Well, a limb doesn't necessarily mean that the person's dead.
Listen, bitch. If he had lost a limb, he would have gone to find help. He would be on someone's radar.
Possibly.
He'd be in a hospital somewhere going, yeah, we've got a guy here who's lost his arm.
But a found limb does not mean to the police that that person is dead. They could have faked a death. They could be alive and well, but obviously he's still missing and they need to try and find the rest of him.
Okay.
So experts are still examining the arm, and one thing they are pretty sure of is that it was cut off by a knife, held by a person, and not chewed off by a shark.
Oh, so discarded arm.
Even worse.
Okay, carry on. Tell me more.
So therefore, the police instantly think, okay, some foul play has happened and we need to investigate Jimmy's connections in the criminal world. And then the first person they're going to ask is the guy that he's supposedly on a fishing trip with, Patrick Brady. So Paddy's area of criminal expertise lied in forgery. Witnesses say that Jimmy was drinking with Paddy at a pub in Cronulla, so they did go there on April the 8th. Mm-hmm. And then no one had seen or heard from Jimmy since. Naturally, the police wanted to have a chat with Paddy, but they had a difficult time trying to find him because it just so happened that when this shark had spat out this arm at Coogee Aquarium, which was all over the news, Paddy does a vanishing act.
Oh, does he really?
He came back from the fishing trip.
Without his buddy.
And he's laying low, sees this news report, and then, shit, I need to get out of here.
Okay, interesting.
So the police try and trace Paddy's whereabouts during the time Jimmy had been missing. They interviewed several locals in Cronulla, including Paddy's landlord and taxi drivers who had ferried him around the place. Mm-hmm. Paddy's behaviour was pretty dodgy, to say the least. The landlord reported that Paddy had removed a mattress, a rug, and a metal trunk from the cottage that he was staying in, only to replace them with brand new ones. And the one thing that was really odd was that he had scrubbed the walls clean, almost obsessively clean.
I'm so sorry. Again, I'm going to come back to the orgy. This is classic clean-up behaviour of a bunch of guys who've just had a massive orgy.
Do you not just lay down some tarpaulin? That way you haven't got to clean up. You just scrunch it up and stick it in the bin. No,
the rustling's too distracting. This is the clean-up operation after everything's done. It's like, okay, guys, great, got some bucket and a mop. So clean the walls, remove the mattress, because you got to burn that.
Yeah, I can't sleep on that. That's not going to dry out for a while.
They can't rent out this room again. So it sounds like, it could be dodgy behaviour.
Or does it sound like he killed him at his place, cut off his arm, took him in the trunk or whatever, and that's why he's replaced it?
That's what you want me to think, but I'm going to need more convincing.
Okay, fine. So people who saw Paddy, shop owners and taxi drivers and others, said he looked a total mess. He was scruffy, dishevelled, and always on edge. He seemed anxious and shifty and downright paranoid in every interaction he had with someone. And it didn't take much for the police to peg him as their main suspect. So when they finally tracked him down, they arrested him and brought him in for questioning. And let's just say Paddy didn't really do himself any favours. He got tangled up in a web of lies, with every answer only making himself look guiltier by the minute. But then Paddy dropped a bit of a bombshell. Whilst he hadn't done any favours for himself, he did point out that there was another guy involved called Reginald Holmes, who we'll call Reggie. And as Paddy called him, a wealthy boat builder who was practically Sydney royalty. According to Paddy, Reggie was no saint, though.
No, they never are, right?
Reggie appeared to be a well-regarded businessman running successful boat-building companies at the harbour at Mahon's Point on Lavender Bay, but his clean-cut image hid a darker side. Reggie secretly operated a profitable smuggling ring using high-speed boats built at his boat shed to retrieve cocaine, cigarettes and other contraband thrown from ships passing by into Sydney's harbour.
Oh, okay.
So he'd pick it up and
smart.
then go sell it.
I'd do that.
Yeah, who's going to realise that's what he's doing, right?
If you were going to point the finger at someone, if you found some contraband, you'd be like, it's obvious who it's going to be.
It's Reggie.
But it's smart. You have a boat company. You've got some ships passing by. Dodgy deal's been done. You're the middleman. Great.
You're just going for a sail at night and then you just pick up some cocaine like, what do you know? So Jimmy Smith was actually an employee of Reggie, often piloting some of those boats during those smuggling runs. However, the two had recently fallen out over a failed insurance scam, and the rumour was that Jimmy had started blackmailing Reggie, leveraging the boat builder's social standing to keep the money flowing.
Okay.
Paddy was convinced that Reggie had arranged to have Jimmy killed to get rid of the problem, and one of the taxi drivers even confirmed he had taken Paddy to Reggie's place right after Jimmy disappeared, and it started to look like Reggie was in this one way or another. This is enough of a lead for the police to start investigating Reggie. They pay him a visit, and like Paddy, he does himself no favours and acts like a man with something to hide, which obviously he does, but whether it's Jimmy's death, we don't know at this point. He's just generally nervous about all the other sort of stuff that he does. Either way, to the police, he was clearly hiding something, but they decided that there was not enough to pin anything on Reggie, so they let him off, for now. To the police, Paddy was still the most likely suspect and chose to charge him with the murder of Jimmy Smith.
Oh, so he's been charged with it. See, I don't think that he did it because I know what you're like. You like to take me on a wild goose chase. Oh, red herring over here and whatever. I'm going to say Reggie's innocent in this.
Okay. So Paddy's arrests hit the front pages on May the 19th, so not long after the original incident with the arm being revealed. But just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more bizarre, the story would take another turn. On the morning of May the 20th, Reggie, still feeling the effects of a heavy night on the town, decides to take his speedboat out onto Sydney Harbour. He anchors near Potts Point, a bustling spot with lots of people around, and they're in their boats just enjoying the shoreline and everything like that. None of them had any idea what was about to happen. Reggie stands up, he takes a big gulp of brandy, straight from the bottle, because he's still pissed as well. He proceeds to raise a pistol to his forehead and pulls the trigger.
Oh, he kills himself.
Bam.
That's the actions of a guilty man. It's got to be.
With that, we'll just take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Okay, great. Hey freaks, if you've been enjoying the show, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yeah, we need your help, and it's super simple, but it makes a massive difference. Last time we asked you guys to leave reviews, the response was overwhelming.
You all really showed up for us, and we loved reading every single one of your reviews. But we've got to keep that momentum going. So, if you're a seasoned Compendium podcast listener, or even if you're new here and you love what you're hearing, could you please take a quick second to leave us a review?
It's super easy. If you're on Spotify, all you got to do is click that star button and give us a 5-star review. Nice and quick, done in like 2 seconds.
But if you're feeling extra generous and you've got a bit more time in your hands, then head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a sweet, thoughtful written review. Trust us, this will go a long way.
Or if you're like, I don't use podcast apps, no worries. You can still show us some love by going to our website, thecompendiumpodcast.com, and leave us a review there. We've made it super easy.
The more reviews we get, the more listeners we can reach, and the better episodes we can bring you. It's a win-win, really.
So yeah, hit that star, leave us a review, and help us grow this amazing community. We appreciate it more than you know.
So, should we get back to the show?
Let's do it. Okay, so we're back, and Reggie has just shot himself in the head in front of a bunch of people whilst on his boat.
Because he's guilty. Surely.
Well, he's got something to hide.
Yeah.
The sound of the gunshot alerts anyone that wasn't fully paying attention, and for those that had clocked Reggie and what he was doing, they witness him fall backward off his boat and into the water. People are stunned because what could have caused Reggie to do this? What could have been so bad that he wanted to take his own life? Mm-hmm. And for a short while, there was a stunned silence, and then some frantic splashing could be heard as the shock of hitting the water had revived Reggie and he pulled himself back up onto his boat.
He just shot himself in the head and he's like, oh, that's cold. And he's back on the boat.
Yep, he was still alive.
Okay.
He had loaded the gun with cheap, faulty bullets made of nickel, and combined with Reggie's thick skull, the bullets were not strong enough to go all the way through his head, and instead the bullet had lodged into the bone and causing a nasty cut on his forehead. So he's still streaming a lot of blood, but he's alive, and he's just probably got a really bad headache.
And I bet he's like, ow! I've been shooting people in the head all this time. This bloody hurts.
Yeah, I don't want to do this. I'm so sorry, guys.
I'm a changed man.
So whilst Reggie had tried to take his life in quite a spectacular fashion, he equally failed just as spectacularly. You'd think after something like this, Reggie would go, I probably just need to go to the hospital to make sure that he's all right. But in all honesty, he's not really sure what to do. He's planned to be dead right now. And he's like, well, I've got the whole afternoon.
I've got the whole afternoon off. Oh, well, I'm going to the pub.
Yeah, I'll have another brandy.
That's so dumb. But the thing is, though, surely in that moment you'll be relieved. And then you've got a new appreciation for life. Let's reform my life. I'm going to get out of crime. I'm going to stop doing the smuggling. But if you were really devastated, like, I was planning on being dead, you'd be like, you can just try again, you know?
Well, with that gun, you could.
Just get another gun.
So some people that kind of knew who he was, they approached him with a bit of caution, but they were like, are you okay? You just shot yourself. And he's still pouring blood and everything else. And while they're trying to find out what's going on, the police shows up because, of course, someone's alerted to the police that some guy has just shot himself. And when Reggie spots the police that are heading towards him, he panics, realizing just how guilty he must have looked. And without a second thought, he sped off in his boat, and the police gave chase in a boat as well. And so Reggie is on one of the fastest speedboats in the harbour, and so he's like weaving out of the harbour between ferries and other sort of boats and stuff like that, whilst the police are chasing him.
Wow.
And the police would get close, because Reggie would allow them to get close, but then he would zoom off again to try and lose them.
Toying with him.
Well, I think he's just trying to, get them to a point where maybe their view was blocked or whatever, so he could then make a getaway.
Right.
But it just doesn't work. The police find him. And for the next 4 hours, there is just this cat and mouse chase in the harbour. And eventually, Reggie runs out of fuel. And so that's when the police catch him.
We got ya.
So they take him down to the station where he starts to get interrogated for the next 3 hours, still with a bullet lodged in his forehead. Mm-hmm. It's not like they say, do you need any medical attention? They're like, no, I want a confession out of you or something.
Yeah. You confess and then we'll get you maybe a Band-Aid because that looks pretty sore.
Not seeing a way out of this, Reggie finally decides to spill the beans and he doesn't hold back. He claims that Paddy was the one who killed Jimmy. He said Paddy had come over to his house, which was corroborated by that taxi driver, and brought Jimmy's severed arm. And according to Reggie, Paddy had waved it around with a stern warning. He says, this is what I'm capable of. Don't cross me.
Yeah. Don't point that thing at me.
And he demands £500 immediately.
Okay.
And I didn't realise, because Australia had the pound before they had the dollar.
Yeah, I know this.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we covered this when we did the Emu War.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I did know this.
Australians really wanted to, because they were like doing really well as an economy. And they were like, the pound had just debased itself and that really impacted the Australian economy. And they're like, why should our economy be based on the British pound? We want our own currency. And then they moved to the Australian dollar.
So I read it was because of decimalisation, because we were still on, shillings and...
It could be all within like that realm. But yeah, and too, right, like why should the Australian economy be based on like an economy that's halfway around the world?
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Doesn't make sense.
No.
So Paddy had demanded this £500 and the message to Reggie was like, if he didn't keep paying him money and cooperating with that blackmail, he would end up just like Jimmy without an arm. To the police, the whole story just sounded insane, but imagine a man showing up at someone's doorstep, waving a severed arm as a threat, and then they're both pointing fingers at each other. It's like something still doesn't quite add up.
Okay.
And then how did the arm end up in the shark's stomach anyway?
Reggie has a boat, right? And he's probably gone out to
just ditch the arm.
Yeah, exactly. Go get some fags that are floating in the ocean and then just dump the arm.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So the police are stuck. Paddy's facing charges already, but Reggie's high-speed boat chase and dramatic behaviour made him look just as guilty. Maybe Paddy's story was true and Reggie was hiding something, or maybe Reggie was terrified that his smuggling and insurance scams would come to light. That's why he tried to take his own life rather than face public humiliation, because he is this prestigious person in society. In the end, the police leaned towards Paddy as the likely killer and got Reggie to agree to testify against him at the coroner's request. But then on June the 11th, Reggie withdraws £500 from his account and late in the evening left home telling his wife he had to meet someone. So it does sound like he is being blackmailed.
Yeah.
Early the next morning, he's found dead in his car. He had been shot 3 times at close range, and it looked like he had committed suicide. But to forensic police, there was no doubt that he was murdered. And what was particularly odd, given Reggie was supposed to give evidence that morning against Paddy.
Oh, really? Eesh. It's plausible to a degree because, of course, he had tried to commit suicide before. But then, of course, if he was serious about committing suicide, he may have just done it again straight away. But then...
Why did he take money out of his bank account?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I can see the attempt by Paddy to try and make it look like a suicide. That sounds plausible. But the other events around that, like the missing money, makes it look a bit dodge.
The inquest still goes ahead, even though Reggie can't testify. And with only Jimmy's arm as evidence, there was simply nothing the prosecution could prove beyond reasonable doubt. The cab driver did testify that Paddy looked disheveled and kept one hand in his pocket as if he was like hiding something, and I don't know, like a gun.
He had one hand in his pocket.
But the trial wrapped up in under 2 days, and with the judge instructing the jury to deliver a not guilty verdict, Paddy was acquitted and walked out of the courtroom a free man.
Okay.
And in the end, no one's ever been convicted of killing Jimmy Smith.
So he never turns up then?
Never turns up. And then all we know is that Reggie is probably murdered, but it looks like suicide. But what people still can't, I guess, come to a conclusion is that why was the arm severed or cut off? Clearly something has gone wrong, but they can't pin Jimmy's murder or anything on anyone.
Well, I mean, cutting up the body, I get it. You probably want to discard the body, right? He got rid of the mattress and he cleaned down the room and stuff. So obviously that's possibly where he's chopped up his body to then go and discard in the ocean or somewhere. Hence why the shark has gotten it. But why keep the fucking arm? Show up at his house, waving it in his face, going, I'm going to get you if you let you give me some money.
But then because it's got the tattoo on it, it's kind of showing, look, I did generally kill Jimmy and I will kill you.
Do you know what? If someone showed up at my house waving an arm at me, it's like, I've killed Adam. Here's his arm. Here's proof. I don't need to see proof. You have an arm in your hand that you've severed off someone's I believe you. It doesn't matter if it's Adam. You've clearly done this to someone.
Yeah, that's true. And so since then, this mystery has remained one of Australia's strangest unsolved murders.
They've got a lot of them, haven't they?
The common theory has always been that Paddy killed Jimmy and managed to slip away thanks to a few legal loopholes, while Reggie arranged his own death to dodge the shame of people discovering he was a crook.
I think people knew he was a fully crook.
Reggie's family had multiple life insurance policies on him, and those wouldn't pay out if he had taken his own life. But then why he tried to kill himself in the harbour, he either clearly forgot about that or, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's true.
But in 2020, a fresh theory surfaces and puts a new perspective on this case. And it comes from 2 Aussie high school teachers, a guy called Phil Roop and another guy called Kevin Meager. They'd been following this case since the 80s, and they'd gone through every police report, witness statements, and newspaper articles. And they come up with their own conclusion about Jimmy's murder and what actually happened. And they put that all in this book called Shark Arm.
Appropriate.
Yeah. So their theory goes like this. By the end of 1934, Jimmy Smith was no longer an average small-time crook. He had become a police informant, a rat, and what they called a fizzer or a fizzgig.
You got to get rid of them, right? The snitches get stitches.
And he'd been tipping off the police for years to get himself out of trouble. And this status made him the lowest of the low in the criminal world. And word was out and Jimmy's days were numbered. One particular crime boss, which the shark arm theory suggests, that Jimmy was killed by Paddy under orders from a gangster called Eddie Wayman. Eddie had been arrested in 1934 while attempting to cash a forged check. And later, during a bank robbery, both allegedly due to tips that Jimmy had provided to the police. So the plan was to stop Jimmy snitching or fizginging, which I really like that word, and they didn't want him to expose anyone else, any other sort of criminals. So the plan was to make Jimmy's murder a brutal, unforgettable warning to other potential informants.
But it doesn't sound like they used it for that, though.
How do you mean?
Because, yeah, they got his arm, but then, do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like they used the arm as that warning.
I guess maybe if you're a criminal, then people will talk and go like, oh, do you know who did that to Jimmy? It was Eddie, actually.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess the significance of having the tattoo is obviously to prove that, right?
Exactly.
I mean, if it was an orgy ring happening, then you could have just like severed his penis, right?
It's not an orgy, Kyle.
But I want it to be. But you could have just severed his penis and gone like, show that as evidence. Like,
people won't know
I've got here.
That's Jimmy's, though.
They will if it's an orgy. If it's an orgy ring. So that proves it's not an orgy ring.
Okay, case closed on that. So the night Jimmy vanished, he was at his rented cottage in Cronulla with Paddy, and a group of dangerous men showed up, and while Paddy managed to escape, Jimmy wasn't so lucky. Hours later, Paddy returned to find the place covered in blood, and one of Jimmy's arms was left behind on the mattress to send a message, and the rest of Jimmy was nowhere to be found. Too terrified to go to the police and fearing he'd be next, Paddy was worried he'd be pinned with the murder of Jimmy, and conviction would have meant the death penalty. And so he's feeling trapped. He can't obviously go to any other sort of gangs or anything like that. So Paddy decides to clean up the cottage, hiding signs of this brutal murder, and he gathers all the blood-soaked items, the mattress, he stuffs that into the metal trunk and he dumps it all into the ocean. And over the next few days, he replaces the missing items, hoping the landlord wouldn't notice. But of course, the landlord's, this place is spotless. What happened here?
Adam, this house is too clean.
Yeah.
It's very suspicious.
Yeah, what happened?
Did any of the items that he dumped in the ocean ever arrive on the shore or anything?
Nope, just the arm.
Never found it, just the arm.
So Paddy went to see Reggie, and if Reggie's account is true, he may have brought along Jimmy's severed arm, waving it around to make a point. But Paddy had two demands. He wanted Reggie to keep paying the hush money to him, even though that Jimmy is gone, he still wanted to blackmail him. And secondly, he wanted Reggie to vouch for him in the criminal underworld, spreading word that Paddy wasn't a snitch. And Paddy needed Reggie's cooperation to keep his income and protect his reputation, hoping he would be able to continue his life in hiding without the law or anyone else breathing down his neck.
Right.
And at some point, either Reggie or Paddy tossed the arm into the ocean, hoping that would be the end of it. And if everyone stayed quiet, this thing would blow over. So the last thing they probably thought of by dumping it in the ocean, that would be eaten by a shark, who would then get captured, stuck in a giant aquarium, and then the shark would then throw it up for everyone to see.
Perfect storm.
So the police investigation into Paddy and then Reggie panicked, attempted suicide, and then failed, and then tried to pin the blame on Paddy, likely hoping to get rid of him whilst protecting himself.
Jesus, I just hear like Benny Hill in my head.
And so he didn't want to get involved with that because I guess these criminals maybe thought Reggie was a liability as well and a loose end, and that he might crack and spill everything. And so they couldn't risk him testifying at the coroner's inquest. So they arranged to have him killed that morning. And so with Paddy getting off and with Reggie now dead, basically this criminal underworld would never be able to come to light.
Sure, I see. They got to keep themselves secret.
But then the one question is Jimmy's arm and how it got in the shark's stomach. Yes, they possibly dumped it in the ocean, but most sources say that actually the shark maybe swallowed the arm, not in the wild, but when it was in the aquarium.
Hang on, though. So, like, when they caught it, someone had come in the night and just fed the arm just to dispose of it, not realizing that actually the shark wouldn't like it and then vomit it up.
Yeah.
Because you said, like, the arm wasn't decomposed in any way. But if it was over a short period and it had happened, like, the previous night, then there wouldn't have been a huge amount of time for it to start, like, decomposing the skin and stuff, and then it vomited it up.
Yeah, I think this is the thing, because people were like, okay, did the small shark eat it? And then that's how the big shark was able to then spew it out. But even with a week in a small shark's stomach, it still would have decomposed a little bit. And so there's theory of if the shark had eaten it a week ago in the wild, it should be more decomposed than it was.
Sure.
And because it had a piece of rope wrapped around its wrist, what they thought is they used that as a way of kind of to get some momentum to throw it over like the walls of the aquarium and into the pool for the shark to eat.
Oh, so there's a chance that they didn't have access to the actual pool itself, so they needed that rope. Oh, okay. And then it gives them multiple chances to try and do that. Even if they did have access to the pool, then maybe they needed to, like you do with fishing, right?
Or whatever.
You'd wrap the rope around the arm and then you would sling it to where the shark is to lure it, drop it right in front of it.
Yeah.
I believe that theory more. That makes more sense.
It does, because that's why the tattoo was still really clear. That's why the fingerprints were also legible and stuff like that. Yeah, they think that actually it was lobbed over the aquarium wall.
And this is a perfect lesson as to why you shouldn't eat 7-day-old meat that's been just laying around. Even sharks can't handle it, right?
Yeah, and there we go then. So that's another reason why it spits it out. And also because the owners of the aquarium were a little bit dodgy anyway, so they probably knew, I don't know, maybe they knew what was going on. Maybe they're happy for someone to discard the arm. Maybe they got a payoff for allowing someone just to feed it to the shark, thinking that's how we get rid of it.
Or if they're all like part of this criminal underground, they probably had a little conference meeting like, okay, we've got this arm, we need to get rid of it. Do you know what? I have a shark. It's on display at the moment. Just come tonight and we'll just feed it to the shark and get rid of it. Because they're networks, right?
Yeah. That's the most popular theory now, and it does make sense. Far more sense than it was stuck out in Little Baby Shark, get eaten by a bigger shark, like Russian doll type thing. But yeah, that is the story of the shark arm murder of 1935.
That was really fun.
Yeah. As murder goes, that was fun.
Yeah, it's a bit of a change from the more kind of hard-hitting journalistic kind of like stories that we'd like to tell.
Yeah, it feels easier to talk about this because one, I guess a lot of the family or close family wouldn't be around now. And so we can, I don't know, it's not quite as hard-hitting.
Yeah. And that little theory at the end wrapped it up in a nice little bow. That's plausible.
Yeah.
With Australians always the smartest. Like when it always comes down to, these scientists have just discovered X, Y, and Z. It's always from some weird university in New South Wales. They've got all the best people.
No, these are just 2 school teachers.
But even though the scientists are impressive, imagine what the school teachers are like.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming up with all these different theories.
So it's like any of those Netflix dramas where people, what was it about the cats? Was it?
Don't fuck with cats.
Yeah, exactly. It's all these kind of internet sleuths, high school teachers, people solving crime, coming up with actual rationale for why these things happened.
That's it. It's always the most plausible thing, isn't it?
It is indeed. Shall we run the outro?
I think we're ready to run the outro.
And that wraps up another journey into the fascinating and the intriguing on the Compendium. If today's episode tickled your curiosity, don't forget to hit that follow button on your favourite podcast app. It makes a world of difference when you do. And for our die-hard listeners, next week's episode is waiting for you right now on our Patreon, completely free of charge. Or if you want more from us, then join our Patreon's Certified Freaks tier to unlock our entire archive, enjoy exclusive content, and get a sneak peek of what's to come. New episodes drop every Tuesday, and until then, remember, if you're planning a crime, best make sure there's no pesky sharks around to cough up that evidence.
Cats cough things up. Don't feed your dead body to a cat.
No, that's a lot of body for a cat to eat.
Don't feed a dead body to your herd of cats. They're all vomiting up chunks of human.
Gross.
Blech. See you next week.
See ya.